Hello and good morning to everyone out there. How's everybody doing? Two beers. How are you doing? Two beers. Nice brick wall on the walls. That must have been a designer cell. Nah, I kind of grabbed that one off of Google Image. Brian Simmons, howdy from Ventura, California. How are you doing? Oh, by the way, a howdy from Jiba, Jiba O and Iloilo. All right. Hey, wait. It says there's 7 people. Chemical agent. Morning from Bataan. How are you? It's been a while since I've been down to Ricky, USA. I'll have to talk to you. Been a while since I've been down to Bataan. I like Bataan. Going down there, the Bataan Death March, checking that whole area out. I thought it was pretty cool down there. Did a video on it. Really nice place. Anyways, Ricky, USA. I seen you, buddy. I know you're here. I know you're here. Uh, Robert Mindanao, good morning. How are you doing, Robert? Keith McDaniels, good morning or good evening. Yeah, it's morning here, evening back in the States. I know the East Coast, about a week ago, Pennsylvania, they turned the clocks back. So now it's 8:30 a.m. or no, 8:30 p.m. So that kind of, I guess it's good. I don't, and from my understanding, I think it's the last time they're going to do that. I think the daylight savings time, how they turn clocks back or ahead, they're going to ditch that next year. So yeah, you're going to Mindanao. Yeah, good morning in Dumagetti, going to Mindanao in 2 weeks. Cool. Have a safe trip. I knew it. I knew it, Ricky. I would see you walk by in the morning. I would see you, and I'm like, wait, that's Ricky. That's Ricky. Hope you're having a good time. My niece has two stalls in the Q Mart in Quakertown. Cool. I love that Quakertown Q Mart. Matter of fact, I did a video on it, right? Cool place. Grew up there, going there, hanging out there on the weekends with my family, eating, shopping. It's just a neat place. Goes back years and years. Jim says in Orange County, California, 5:04 p.m. Wednesday evening. Uh, Noel D. Philly, I'm currently in Nevada. Incompetent stand trial for 18 years and ready to retire next December 2023. Incompetent stand trial for 18 years. I'm not sure what you mean. If you're talking about 18 years, I'm not sure. I'm not following you. You say you hate the time, yeah. It gets darker out earlier, but then again, the flip side is in the summertime, it stays sunny out up 8, 9 o'clock. So you can't beat that. Oh, okay. All right. So you're a correction officer in a maximum state. You tell a lot of stories. We all can. We all can. We all have our own stories. Um, I don't like to talk about it too much. It's kind of like you know what I'm saying. You hide these things in the back of your brain. It's not a nice place to work. Not a nice place. But somebody's got to do it, right? Somebody has to do it. So enjoy your retirement. You definitely earned it. I know you definitely earned it. Keith says, on my way to visit the Philippines to meet my lady friend I met 6 months ago. Any advice to a first time visitor? Uh, have a good time. Um, don't set the standard. I always tell, don't set the standard that you're a filthy rich American and lavish everybody with gifts and parties and everything like that. For the simple reason, they're going to expect it. They're going to expect it from you every time. But have a good time. Take it all in because your visit, however long or short it may be, will go by pretty quick, but take it all in. Have a good time. Jason from Northern California. What's up, Brian? How are you doing? I'll be there in Thanksgiving. Hopefully, I can meet up with you. Um, yeah, Thanksgiving. Wow, that's coming up. What, next week? Um, have a safe trip. You got to remember, they don't. Thanksgiving's not a holiday here in the Philippines. That's an American holiday. It might be a holiday in other countries also, but they don't really celebrate it. Um, Up here in Angeles City, where we're at, a lot of the restaurants will do Thanksgiving meals, Thanksgiving buffets. So you can get some pretty good meals here. Um, we used to do a buffet that was amazing, and it seemed like every year their prices kept going up and up and up. So it's like, nah, we're not going to do it because we can find buffets with turkey, the fixings, the mashed potato, the gravy, and the bread and the pumpkin pie. Um, but they do really good Thanksgiving buffets here. Like I said, it's not a holiday that is celebrated here. So I worked in Illinois prison for 28 years. Wow, John, that's a long that's a long time. 28 years. The thing is, where we worked, it was always do your 20, get your age 50, and get out. A lot of guys go to 25 years. Some guys don't have the time or won't have the age. Um, I got a buddy, he's third highest uh, senior officer on second shift. He's retiring in 2024. He could retire now. He's got the time, he's got the age, but I just call him money hungry. I call him money hungry. Uh, there was a time where you could pretty much write your own paycheck, working double shifts, working on your days off, working on holidays. Um, there was a time, like I said, you could write your own check. Good morning, Edward and Nita, riding in the Philippines. How are you guys doing? If you come to visit Mindanao, look me up. We have Spring Fed Pool Resort, free for you guys. Cool. I don't know when we'll be down in Mindanao again. Lutz family's from down there. That's her province. But I don't know when. Lutz talking maybe when the girls have summer vacation. She'll, we'll get down that way. We'll see. But I do know she wants to get down there, visit her father's grave. She hasn't been to his grave site quite a few years, so I'll let you know. I'll let you know, or I'll let everybody know when I'm going down there. Dan says, "Hey, Philly, looking to visit Philippines. I worked 25 years in New York Corrections, retired 10 years ago." Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, we can tell stories, um, and guys can talk about the experience, but until you've been in it, it's kind of, you can't understand. We go into an environment every day where we don't know if we're coming out. We don't know if something's going to happen. And that's something you have to live with and deal with for the rest, for your working time. Now, of course, as you put your time in, you can get assigned less, I guess, stressful, you could call it, posts. Um, one of the posts that a lot of the guys that were older got were tower jobs. They, we had 9 towers ran around the 20-foot wall, concrete wall, 8 hours up there. A lot of times, if they pulled a double, they kind of stayed up there. There are less stressful. Boy, until you get to that point, you never know. Every day, you never know. Um, but it's an environment. It's an ugly environment. You're in there with murderers, rapists, arsonists, con men, uh, all kinds of criminals. Um, and where we worked at Greaterford State Penitentiary, which is closed in 2018, and they moved it to the new institution, SCI Phoenix, beautiful state of the art. Um, but yeah, not a nice place. You had to deal with Bruce. How are you doing? And good morning to Bruce. You had to deal with, you know, inmates throwing feces on you, you know, throwing crap on you. Um, Inmates calling you names, inmates swearing at you. And the thing is, they're names. They're calling you names. You can't turn around and say, write up an inmate for calling you a name. It's a name. Um, Now, however, if the inmate, say, threatens you with bodily injury, say he's going to attack you, he's going to beat you up, he's going to come after your family, that's a different story. But it's a strange environment, that's for sure. A buddy of mine was the one-on-one for Arlen Specter in Chano Colony for Men. All right. Um, and another thing is each state runs their system and their prisons differently from any other state. They have their own rules, their own regulations. Sounds like Marine Corps boot camp. Soap on a rope. That's another one, Mike. Soap on a rope. Uh, Another one you had to watch out was for a lock and a sock. There's another slang, a lock and a sock. What they would do is they get a sock, and the inmates, when they would leave their cells, they would reach up and they would put a lock up on their cell and lock it. So other inmates couldn't go in, because there's times where you throw that main lever and it opens up, say, the one side that allows the inmates to go in and out of their cell. But what they would do is the old lock and a sock. They throw a lock in a sock, and something went down. They could use it against you or other inmates. Uh, but yeah, there's so many slang words. Yeah. Greetings from California, my UA brother. Greetings, Kevin, Big Kev. Good morning, Big Kev. Got to go, Brian. Have a good show. Thanks for stopping in, Kev. I installed, where was this at? I installed electronic security intercoms, paging systems. All right. We had, when I first started, I'm trying to think, they did have security cameras in certain areas, but not on the blocks. They started installing them in the blocks and around the institution as I started working there. And we were told it's for our security. All right. I used to write up inmates for disrespect. They had to deal with that during at their parole hearing. I just quoted them verbatim. Um, yeah. Here's the thing about Graterford. When we went down to the academy, you had to go down to the academy in Camp Hill, and it was at the time, I think it was 6 weeks long. And when we would sit in classrooms and they would talk about the policies and how to do different things and classifications and everything, they would always say, this applies to every institution except Graterford. Graterford ran chaotic, but it ran controllable. I know, does that make sense? It was chaotic, but it was controllable. It had its own way of running. But yeah, that was one of the things they would say. Yeah. Here, check these out, guys. These cuffs are my original cuffs that I used to cuff inmates. I've had murderers in these cuffs, rapists in these cuffs, guys on death row waiting for their sentence to be handed down. You name it. I couldn't even tell you how many guys I had in these cuffs. Um, but yeah, I always kept these. Even after I retired, I kept these. These cuffs could tell a story, right? No, I didn't do anything for Veterans Day, Brian. Once again, i- it's it. I think the Philippines has their own type of Veterans Day, um, but no, I didn't do anything. There it is, Dan P. Organized chaos. I should trade them in for fuzzy ones. Yeah. Okay, for those that don't know about how cuffs work, um, I don't know. I don't know where my key is. When you put a cuff on an inmate, you hear that clicking. You guys hear that clicking. You click it down, and our rule of thumb was you should be able to get a part of a pinky in there because if they're on too tight, leaves marks. Inmates can complain about it. Inmates can file a grievance about it. So you put the cuffs on to where you get a pinky in there. Then there's a locking system where you actually lock the cuff so the cuff can't keep clicking. It locks in there. Because if you're cuffed up somebody from behind and you don't lock that in there, and say it's bouncing on their back area or on their back hip, and the cuff can get tight on them. And then, like I said, once again, you make a complaint and they can write a grievance on you. But that's how cuffs work. And then you can always, um, of course, unlock them and take them off. Now, our rule of thumb when we cuffed up was the keyhole. You can see the keyhole right there. The keyholes were in towards the body. Reason being because the inmate's hand is through this side. If the holes were facing the inmate's hands and fingers, he could get something in that keyhole there and mess with it, or maybe he had a key himself, which you never know, or mess with that keyhole and free up the cuff. Um, so yeah, they were cuffed this way so they couldn't mess with the keyhole. If you had a big guy, like you had some pretty big dudes in there, you would double up on the cuffs. One, double up, and then the other cuff. We even had a guy that was so big, we used leg shackles to cuff this dude up, man. He was just a big dude. Um, but yeah, Sing Sing, Attica. And here's another thing. I watch, there's a show on, not Netflix, it's Philo TV where they talk about the history of the prisons and stuff. And I just like watching how and when they were built and like how they ran, you know, years ago, up to the, current point. We used to cuff thumbs up through the foot port. Yes, that way too. Cuffs up, thumbs up. Death row. Here's a funny thing. Chemical agent. Death row guys. Thumbs down. We would always cuff them thumbs down. Um, but yeah, so there's 106 people in here. This isn't for everyone. I could, I did that little series and put it out, but you know, I could talk more, a longer video when I do live. Um, hey, Brian, visiting my cousin's park. It's in Angeles City, Bella Montana Farm. Great place to vlog on. All right, I'll have to check it out. There's so many little parks around here and water parks. They're hidden gems. Yeah, you imagine that, Jim, if I don't know where the key cuffs are or the cuff keys are. Then you got to call the police. Hey, I need you to bring your cuff keys up here. Um, but anyways, we had, like I said, you go to the academy in the state of Pennsylvania for 6 weeks. You get out, then you go into the prison, and you're a correction officer trainee for a year. In that year, you go to every post in that prison. You have different phases: phase one, phase two, phase three, and I'm not sure if there was a phase four, But each phase, you progress to different levels of the institution. Like phase one, you might work on a block. Um, phase two, you might work in medical. Phase three, you might work in the RHU. And you worked every shift, first, second, third shift. You rotated. So you got to experience what it was like on each shift in each part of the institution. When you turned over, then you became a correction officer one. Now you could be assigned anywhere. What they would do is you have first, second, third shift. First shift is 6 to 2, seconds 2 to 10. Then you have 10 to 6. What they would do 9 times out of 10 is they throw you on second shift, because second shift is the least desirable shift. First shift is a shift that everybody kind of wanted to go on. Um, people with families, and first shift was great. Um, didn't pay as much because you have shift differential between each shift. And third shift, I don't know. I mean, there was different guys there for different reasons. They might have had families that the wife worked during the day. There was many reasons why. A lot of guys getting ready to retire might hit that third shift. A lot of guys that just didn't want to be bothered with, with the the everyday dealings of the institution. Will get on third shift. Plus, there was really not much movement. So, anyways, I got thrown on second shift, and for the first month or so, I was miscellaneous. That job, it was miscellaneous. Go help feed in A block, B block, whatever. Escort this inmate to the RHU, escort this inmate from the RHU. You did a lot of moving around the whole institution, so you got to learn the institution. Then after that, what they'll start doing is they'll gradually start assigning you a post. At the time, there was no assigned posts. In other words, you didn't bid on it and you didn't get it. What they would do is they would put regular officers on each block in each position. They weren't assigned there, but they knew how to run that position. So that was their assigned position. Then when you had guys that were off, because you had 4 officers on a block, so you would have 4 guys rotating days off. So they started assigning me to B block and C block as a second shift fill-in. So one of the things too is, you don't, just because you're wearing a uniform and you got a whistle and a walkie-talkie, doesn't automatically give you respect. Respect is something that's you got to earn inside the prison. It doesn't come with your badge. You know what I mean? So C block, I called C block the hell block, the ghetto block. Why did I call it the hell block? Because it was so hot. It was so hot on that block. If it was 95 degrees out, it was 100 on that block. The reason being is you had the steam lines from the power plant that ran under the block. And you got to understand, the block is all concrete. Ran under the block, went out to the main kitchen. So I called it the hell block. So I got assigned on there, and they asked me, where do you want to, what section do you want? Bottom front, bottom back, top back. And I'm like, you know what? Put me in the bottom back, because you're in the pit of the hell, I call it. You got a lot of guys in there, they're transitioning. They might have came from the RHU. They might have moved up to that block. RHU is a strict restricted housing unit, or what they call the hole. They're transitioning. They don't know, and you don't know if they're going to do the right thing to keep progressing through the system, or they're going to revert back to being crazy. So I was in the bottom back. And as an officer on the block, you got to walk the block. You got to walk your section. So what a lot of guys would do is they'd stand outside the bridge. The bridge was in the middle. It was a bubble that had glass around it. There was a door that would go in and out. You answer the phone, you write paperwork, everything in there. They would stand on the bridge and stare out into their assigned area. Occasionally go down and do their walkabout. The bottom back, I always said, if there's something going on, it's going to be in the very bottom back of the block. Why am I going to stand on the bridge and look out when I can't see the very back? And there's no officer on the door back there. We're in the front of the block, there's an officer. So I would walk to the back. I'd walk up, there's 2 steps that would go to the second level. And I would stand there and look down onto the block to see what was going on. And you got to remember, they're watching you like you're watching them. They watch everything you do. They watch your movements. They follow your patterns, what you're doing, where you're going. They follow that. They know what time you're going to go here, what time you're going there. They know everything and every movement you do. So I was standing in the back, gazing out over everything. Inmates really didn't know me. I'm the new guy. I'm the rookie. So I'm standing up there, and what they would do is when it was real hot, they would allow the cell doors to be cracked open a little bit. Not big enough to where the inmate could come out. So when we had blockout was when all the inmates would come out into the middle of the block, sit down, play cards, eat, whatever they wanted to do. So I would notice some of the cell doors had open, they were cracked, and that was to allow airflow. There was no air conditioning, guys. There's no air conditioning. That would allow airflow through the block to at least try to cool it down some. So I noticed this one cell was cracked, and there was a towel up there. And I sat and I studied this cell for about a month and a half. Every time I would go stand back there, I would go and see, that the cell door was cracked. He had like a little sheet up, and a lot of times they put sheets up in case they're using a bathroom or whatever. But what I noticed was, it seemed like every day or every evening, there'd be another cell or another inmate that would go into the cell with the other inmate that was in the cell. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? But it seemed like I said, every time a different inmate. So I kept studying it. And they had a little mirror. They would pop this mirror out, and they would look and see what I'm doing back there. So I knew something was going on. So this went on for a couple months, just observing. After a while, they quit pulling the mirror out and looking because they figured, he's not going to come down here. He just stands up there. And when he's done, he walks down the steps and goes down to the bottom. So then it was like, okay, do they have a caller? I called it a caller. This was an inmate who might be sitting down below looking up. And if an officer moved into that area, they would make a funny noise. I called it a caller. Hooty hoot, hooty hoot. They do something that would notify those inmates in that cell that there's an officer coming. So I'm like, all right, how do I find out if they have a caller? Well, the best way is change up my pattern and walk on the top bridge, on the top tier. So I took off walking. Nothing. I didn't hear no caller, no nothing. I'm like, all right, I'm good to go. I did this a few times. No caller, no caller. So eventually, like I said, for months, they watched me, I watched them. One day I said, it's time. Went to the back, stood up there. Nobody's watching me. Nobody cares what I'm doing. They think I'm just up there observing the block. Turned and I walked towards that cell. As soon as I got to that cell, I pulled the sheet down. The 2 inmates in there looked up at me, mouth wide open. What was going on was the one inmate who owned the cell, he was tattooing people. That was his thing. Tattooing is a write-up. Tattooing's not allowed for the simple reason it could spread diseases, So I looked at the inmate looked at me, and he just basically handed the thing to me. And I didn't want the other inmates to see that. So I turned sideways, put it in my pocket, walked up to the bridge, sat down with the sergeant, Sergeant Frace. I still remember him. Nice guy, been there for a long time, very friendly, very full of a lot of wisdom and knowledge. Sat in there, acted like nothing was wrong. I say, hey, Sarge, I found something, but I don't want to get it out of my pocket. Because what happens is when you do something like that, they will send up, I call them soldiers. They'll send up soldiers up on the block, up by the bubble there, the bridge, to see what's going on. And I didn't want to pull it out, notify any other inmates, because inmates do walk around there, what I found. Told the sergeant, listen, here's what I found. Showed it to him a little bit. I said, what do I do? He said, well, you got two things you could do. He said, one, you can write him up. You can write him up, for contraband, tattooing, everything like that. Or second, what you can do is not write him up. Destroy it. Destroy the tattoo gun. Throw it away. He said, what'll happen is the inmates will learn that you're not a petty officer. In other words, write everybody up for everything. Another thing that will happen is now you got a bunch of them in your back pocket. I'm like, okay, makes sense. The inmate that was tattooing, he was getting ready to go to the outside. He was getting ready to go home. And when I went back and talked to him, he was in tears, literally almost in tears. And I would listen, I'm not writing you up. However, I want names. And I knew the inmates that were going in and out of the cell getting tattoos. I could have got them written up too, because when you get in the institution, they take photos of all your tattoos. If you're gang related, all your tattoos are photographed, put in the system. I could pull an inmate up, see every tattoo he had. I could have easily nabbed every single one of them by just grabbing them, taking them down, writing them up for I think it was some type of mutilation. I forget what it is of a body, because when you're in there, you're the property of the state of Pennsylvania. I could say, listen, here's your photos. You didn't have these tattoos. You've been here the whole time. I could have written up a bunch of them, but they all knew that. They all knew I could have written them up. So after that whole fiasco of me not writing them up, me not writing up the tattoo guy, because there's a chain there, because you got a guy that brings in the ink. You got a guy that holds the tattoo gun. You know what I mean? There's a whole chain of them. And just by doing that, like that little bit, by not writing up, I gain respect on that block. If you had a problem with another inmate who was unruly, those inmates would step to him and be like, listen, leave him alone. He's an all right guy. You had to draw the line when it came to write-ups. There's guys that are they're hardcore guys, Nothing wrong with that. They'll write you up for every little infraction. But then you get known as the guy amongst the inmates that he writes you up for every little thing. And they don't respect that. They don't respect that officer. But what I wanted from these guys is, one of the things that I didn't like inside the jail was drugs. Drugs can and now you're asking yourself, how do drugs get in? Did staff bring it in? Did the guards bring it in? Comes in many, many ways, many forms. It can come through a visitor room. It can come through an officer. It can come through a therapist. It can come through a librarian. It can come through a shop director. There's many ways. It can come through the keister, right? Many ways it can come in. But I didn't like it for the simple reason some guys get strung out and they become violent, attack an officer, attack another inmate. So that was one of the things that uh that I didn't like go for, or shanks or weapons. Um, but they would slip me names. I would go down to security, say, "Hey, I was given this name. Bring him down for a urine test." Boom, they come down. Get a hot urine test. Well, now you're busted. Now you're going to the RHU, the hole, for drugs. Then the cell would get shaken because they would want to go in there and shake the cell and make sure there was no drugs in there. Um, and the inmate that would tell me, nobody knew. Like nobody knew. Yes, they're called snitches, but you got to have snitches for things to roll. Um, but yeah, that was my experience. My first, like experience with C Block, and like I said, respect is not something that you get just because you wear a badge. Guys, we didn't even have weapons. We didn't have a pistol. Depending on where you worked, if you worked in the RHU and you were moving, say, a death row inmate up to the law library, yeah, you had a baton. Um, Beyond that, you know what you had? You had a walkie-talkie, which went out to every officer that had one. You had a whistle of all things. You get on the block and you blow that whistle if you're in trouble, that bellows through the whole block. That even goes out into the main corridor. You hear that whistle. We had that. Our ties were clip-on ties. We couldn't use the rope, the ties were you made because an inmate could take that off you and choke you. We didn't have that. We had cuffs, which when I first started, they wouldn't allow you to carry cuffs. You had to go down to security or the bubble or the day captain's office to get a pair of cuffs to go and cuff up an inmate. Later on, when I was working, they allowed you to bring cuffs in. They had to be a certain brand of cuff. You had cuffs. Beyond that, you know what you had? You know what protected you and got you out of trouble? Right here. This, right here. Your brain. If you had to fight, you had to fight. You had to defend yourself. But right here, the brain is what got you out of a lot of trouble and everything. But that's one of my many C Block stories. C Block here. Did I enjoy prison cuisine, Jim? We had staff dining, which we got different food from the inmates, but no, it was no good. Here's the dynamics of C Block. You had, when you walked on the left side, bottom left hand, and some of the the bottom right and part of the top right hand side were all your guys that were doing life. Life is life in the state of Pennsylvania. So they were housed on that right hand side. Left hand side were doubled up cells, inmates in there for whatever reason. So the bottom front had a lot of Puerto Ricans, Latinos, Mexicans, not so many Mexicans, like Puerto Ricans. And those were a lot of them were your gangbangers on the street, the Latin Kings, and all your Puerto Rican gangs. You had on the top left-hand side, on the second level, as you got closer to the bubble or the bridge, the left-hand side was a lot of lady boys, as you would call them, right? They always housed up in that area because it was close to the bridge. You could keep an eye on them. But they would house up in that area. The bottom back housed a lot of your street gang guys, your Bloods, your Crips, your junior black mafias, A lot of your gang members were back there. A lot of them wanted to be on C block. They didn't want to go to B block, A block. They like C block. Um, Remember this one guy, house right hand side, back top. His name was Ricky, white guy, strong dude, man, strong dude. He was doing life because on the street he was training to be a boxer. This is the story I was told. Training to be a boxer, got into a fight in a bar, hit a guy, killed him. Hit him, guy fell over, banged his head and killed him. He got a life sentence on that. On top of that, he also had a big criminal record prior to that. This guy Ricky worked down in the not the auditorium, the gymnasium. He worked for the he worked in there. One day I was sitting there watching him. He was working out on the the big bag. He was hitting that thing and hitting that thing. And the longer he was hitting on it, the harder them blows were coming. And I was like, damn, I would not like to be hit by this dude, man. You could tell he was powerful. Then he turned and looked at me and gave me this smirk and smiled. And I'm like, oh, man. But he was the only white guy, when they had basketball. The blocks would come down and they would have basketball in the gymnasium there. He was the only white guy when it was time to leave, when gym time was over, when everybody had to go back. Officer didn't do it. He was assigned to go out there and basically take the ball from the guys to quit playing basketball. Because if you don't, they'll keep playing basketball. But he'd take it. They were fine with it. They would line up and ready to go because they knew they didn't want to mess with Ricky. But this guy, he was a character. I forget what happened to him. I think he wound up getting transferred. But yeah, that's it. For 42 minutes and 26 seconds. I know I'm talking. There's still 113 people in here, so I appreciate it. You guys must enjoy hearing me talk about her, telling my stories. But like I said earlier, it's not a place for everyone to work. It's not a place. I got stories from the RHU, the Hole, and A block, B block, E block, chow halls. Ton of stories. Nobody wants to mess with Ricky. You're right, Ricky. This dude, man, I forget what happened one time where he got pissed, and I thought he was gonna bust into the bridge here, into the office we sit in, and come after all of us. But he knew better. But then again, a lot of time, what a lot of inmates do is they put on a show. They might talk loud and boisterous, but they know not to cross that line when it comes to an officer. You might take something from an inmate. You're not allowed to have that. Accept it. I'm not going to write you up. But to save face, like here in the Philippines, to save face, they might, that's effed up and F that, and you shouldn't effing take this, and you mother it. They do that to be loud and boisterous. They're not going to say, I'm going to go after you and I'm going to beat you up and I'm going after you. They won't say that because now they've crossed the line. But a lot of inmates get boisterous like that to make them save face or to make them, make tough amongst the other inmates. But even the inmates know what's going on. They know. Those that have time in there know exactly what's going on, why that person's doing that. So, yeah. I knew a guard that told me he hated the job. He said the only difference between him and the inmate was that he went home to sleep. Yeah. True. You spend more time in there than you do with your family. Uh, um, especially, you work overtime. When you work overtime, you're not working another, say, 4 hours or 2 hours. You're working another 8 hour shift. You're working a total of 16 hours. Then you got to get out. And it's not a matter of just, oh, I'm just going to walk out the door and get in my car and leave. It could take you 15 minutes sometimes to get out from the RHU out to the front gate. Now they started doing what's called walk time and paying people. So now you got 15 minutes. Now you're in your car. Now you got to get, to your house. You might be a half hour, an hour away. You get home, you can't sleep right away. You finally lay down. You might eat something. Then you get up. So you're only getting 5, 6 hours of sleep at the most. Come back into work and start it all over. We did a bunch of us one time. We said, let's see how many doubles we can pull in a row. I forget how many we did. A lot of times they won't, they'll let you do so many that, management will be like, no, you got to go home and sleep. I forget how many we did, 6, maybe 7, but you're a zombie. You're a zombie by that third day. And management knew it, so they would give you a post where you didn't have to basically be as alert than, say, on a block. They'd give you maybe miscellaneous, or they'd give you a control bubble, or, a side gate door, or maybe have you fill in. I didn't want to fill in for a guy on in a tower because I'd fall asleep. But yeah, it's you're in there. You spend a lot of time in there. We didn't have weekends off. Well, we did until I transferred into maintenance. Your shift, your week went. You had Monday, Tuesday off. Following week, Tuesday, Wednesday, then Wednesday, Thursday, then Thursday, Friday. Then you had Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Then you had Saturday, Sunday, Monday off. So every so many weeks, you had a long weekend. Then after that, you went back to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day. There's no. All right, we're shut down for the holiday. We're shut down. Nobody come in 24/7, 365 days a year. It runs. Somebody's got to be there. Just the way it is. If you worked a holiday, they would give you that holiday later as a day off, or you could take the pay at double time, or no, time and a half. If you worked double on a holiday, it could give you 2 days off or double time and a half. Crazy. Like I said, it was you wrote your own check when you started working there. Do inmates get intimidated when dealing with a strong inmate like Ricky? If you've never, and those guys that are in here that did their time and are still in here, if you never were scared at one point of your career working in there, you're either a liar or you're just like brain dead. Yes, you get scared. Yes, you get nervous. The key is not to show it. I got some stories where, man, I was shaking in my boots, but I didn't show it. You can't show it. As soon as you show that, it shows weakness. Respect is gone. I did have one inmate, Butchie was his name. He worked on B block, or no, he was housed on B block. He was part of the Pagan Motorcycle Club. And something happened on B block that I had to get involved in. And I was done. Butchie came up to me and Butchie goes, "Yeah, I know you were scared." I looked at Butchie and I started laughing. I said, "Who wouldn't be?" And he just laughed. He goes, "You're right." He goes, "I'd have been scared." So even inmates get scared. But yeah, does it happen? Do officers get intimidated? Yeah. Yeah, they do. But, well, it is. We've been doing this for 50 minutes. Look's not feeling well. Usually Look comes out and she says hello. At any moment, you could be off the count, 50 to 100 guys or 200 in a yard, a mess hall. A life could take you out anytime, like a two-man sparrow trike team in the Philippines for 500 pesos. It's just a job. You're right. There's a there's a whole counting system with inside the jail, how they count the inmates, how they account for where they're at. Um, there's a whole system for all that. Count has to clear before any movement starts. Um, any movement, that all has to clear. Everybody has to be accounted for. Um, if count doesn't clear, they'll call for a recount. Then you go back through and you recount everything. The day captain's office has to clear the count. Um, say if there's a third recount, then the state police have to be notified. There's another chain that goes from there. Camp Hill has to be noted. There's a big chain of events that happens if an inmate can't be accounted for. And say they can never account for the guy. Then the jail goes into a lockdown. All hell breaks loose. ABC, CBS, MSNBC, Fox News are all going to show up. Inmate escapes. It'll be a major fiasco. Yeah. Thank God nothing like that happened when I was there. So, all right, guys. Used to hate getting stuck in a Sally port account. Yeah. Yeah. I would get stuck in that Sally port too. The key there is, count. Okay, count. I hated getting stuck in a Sally. I just hate getting stuck in a Sally port. I just used to hate getting. Did the guards get any formal combat training to be able to defend themselves? Yes, Bruce. Here's the thing: when you go to the academy, they will teach you how to apply different holds, different moves, how to defend yourself, how to use batons. They teach you that. Because when you do a write up, say if you have to get involved with an inmate or you have to break something up or you have to lay your hands on an inmate, you have to write it up according to how you were trained at the academy. So say if you had a baton and you went after, they have points on your body, your elbows and your shoulders and your knees. And say you were making a strike on an inmate going for common perennial, I forget them all. And in the process of making that strike, the inmate tried to block it. And in return, the baton hit him on the kneecap, which you're not allowed to hit him. But you have to word it as you went for these specific things. Same way with pressure point holds. They told you all these pressure points, how to get inmates down, how to move inmates. But the bottom line is, when your life is in danger, you're going to do what you got to do to survive. You know what I mean? Throw all that shit out the window. You got to do what you got to do to survive. And once something happens, you grab that walkie and you call it in. You might be there in that area for 5 minutes before the block gets flooded full of other officers. And the whole time, inmates are standing back. They're not going to get involved in a dispute with another inmate or another officer. The whole time, the inmates stand back. But as soon as the block were to get flooded full of officer, everybody takes off. They go in their cells. Everything gets stopped. You cannot. Here was another one. I know I'm rambling. Once a situation is quelled, in other words, you got the inmate under control. Nothing's going on. He's subdued. He's not going anywhere. All the officers are there. You got him cuffed. He cannot defend himself. He cannot do anything. You cannot take a cheap shot at the dude. Like you can't, if say the dude got the best of you, you can't, when he's cuffed, you can't hit him. You can't kick him. You can't do any of that because it's over. It's done. It's subdued. Um, that was another one. But all right, 55. After rules, better judged by 12 than carried by 6. True. True. Most of these holds are useless. In the academy, you're dealing with a complaint status. These guys have a knuckle game and are often in phenomenal shape. The time you have is 15 to 20 and just counting time. Yeah. You're not, you have guys that would come in and, you know, the tough guy, the Billy Badass officer, and they would talk this crap like, yeah, I'm going to whip this guy or I should whip this guy. It's like, dude, you want to fight 6 guys at one time. You're not going to win. You're going to be lucky if you fight one guy and you can stand up against him because these guys are in shape. Not all of them, not all of them. But a lot of them are in shape for their own self-defense against other inmates. You know what I mean? 9.5 times out of 10, any fight that would occur, or let me say 99% of the time, any fight that would occur was with inmates, inmate on inmate. That's it. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. Hope you enjoyed it. Seems like we kept a good number here. Thanks for stopping. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Those guys that are in here that have worked in corrections, kudos to you. You're retired. You earned it. You earned it. I know you earned it. Chemical agent pepper spray is the CO's best friend. We didn't even have that. We weren't even allowed to carry that. So, anyways, guys, Ricky USA, if you're in here, I hope you didn't leave yet. Let me say that. Hope you didn't leave it. And KJ, thank you. KJ, what is the answer? Where are you at? KJ, where are you at? KJ, did you ask me a question? If so, put it in the comments right now. Bruce Cinder, when are you coming to the Philippines? They have lifted the ban. No more boosters and shots required. The door is open for you, Bruce. All right. Trying to find what is the answer. I don't know. I'm going to wait for JK. If you put up a question, if you want me to answer your question, if you would kindly put the up. I hope to make it there June. Okay. What is the answer to our prison population? I don't want to get political, but at least in the state of Pennsylvania, those in charge, district attorneys, Joe Fetterman. Yeah, Joe Fetterman, right? They feel the answer to their prison population now is to release inmates. That's their answer. Like I said, I don't want to get political. Some institutions are a lot tougher than other institutions when it comes to doing time. They've been trying to figure that answer out for years and years and years and years. Back in early 1900s, down at Eastern State Penitentiary, which is down in Philadelphia, which is closed, they thought to keep inmates out was to lock them in cells all the time and give them a Bible. No talking. That was their cure. Inmate counts are much lower. Drugs and no bail equals lots of prisons. There it is. The legalization of cannabis took a lot of guys, from sitting, from getting locked up. Um, you got a lot of guys sitting in there that shouldn't even be sitting in there on a huge sentence. Um, I don't know. Most states are going private security corporates to run the prison now. Some are, yeah. They tried that in Pennsylvania and that didn't fly. Um, they got a strong union in Pennsylvania. Didn't fly. All right, guys, I got to get out of here. Thanks for stopping in. Thanks for listening to me ramble. And we will talk to you later.